So he can't jump up as much. But here he is. I don't know if you can see
You
him.
gonna put him on a diet?
Well, instead of giving him, I changed the size of the plate from a large plate to a smaller plate. That's one thing I've done. I think that they just needs to get out and run more. Of course, it's not all that great in this weather, but I try to exercise him as much as possible.
Yeah.
He does need he's really a dog that sticks close to me, doesn't run. And so
Oh,
yeah, so that that's those things happen. Uh let's see. I'm going to change to so you can see Happy. Here he is. You see
hi,
him now?
hi, Happy.
Yeah.
Look
Okay.
at Scruffy. Here's Scruffy.
Oh,
You see Scruff? Here. That's the, I don't
Oh,
think
there he is.
the sunlight. Yeah. This
oh,
dog is, he bosses me around, but I'll tell you about that in a little bit. Do you guys, we're not on recording, right?
not yet.
Yes.
Okay, what happened to Jack? I mean, Jack, when I was in the group the other night, he just seems so different. And then Lynn told me he was doing that with you guys too, with Lori's. I didn't go on Sunday night. It's just not that easy for me on Sundays. Laura, what happened with Jack?
You mean
Nothing happened, but his personality has changed from what it used to be.
wait a minute. Who are we talking about? Jack from Mexico or Jack from Philadelphia?
Jack
From
Riley,
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
Oh, I don't think we should be talking about this because this is live.
No, this is live on YouTube. You guys shouldn't be talking about this
I
stuff.
thought we weren't on. I asked that.
I said yes, we were, but
Oh,
apparently
well, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I've been saying, yeah, let's not talk about that right now.
No, no. I would never.
Okay, so here we are. We're live on YouTube. So
I'm sorry.
You gotta laugh. You just gotta laugh. Yeah.
Well, it's you, Doug. You got me in trouble. You said I could do it.
I got you in trouble.
She made me eat the apple.
all right, you guys.
I talked to Lynn, but here's the thing. None of it matters. None of it, because we're all
That's
here.
right. It's all here for
Actually, it doesn't really mean anything.
Wait,
And
let's introduce
and
us.
guess what? The first one to agree with that would be Jack.
Yeah, I just think it's
Exactly.
neurological. That's why I was saying something.
All right. Well, we're all having neurological events. So good morning, everybody. Thankful Thursday with Dove and Sharon and Lori. And yeah, apparently for some reason my microphone it looked like it was turned on, but I kept saying no. Anyway, here we are.
Len, I have a quick question.
Sure.
Did you see the message that I'm looking to get one Tuesday a month for doing chapter 25 of the Course of Miracles?
Oh no, I didn't.
Oh, yeah, I asked for one Tuesday, our Tuesday night
Okay,
Zoom.
sure.
And
Whichever one you want, except for the 4th.
okay, so whatever's available, I'll take it.
Okay. So you want to do it next Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month?
Sure.
Okay, there we go. Chapter 25, Dove Fishman. All right, very good. All
Are
right,
we
you
on
guys.
YouTube?
Yeah.
Well, when do we start then? Do we start now?
Go right on ahead.
It depends what you want to. I was going to say I wanted to talk a little bit about what is the ego.
Had a good demonstration.
What is the ego? Okay, the ego is idolatry, the sign of limited and separated self, born in a body doomed to suffer and to end its life and death. Now, the funny thing is, and this is from Ken Wapnick's stuff, yet this self is what we continually choose to idolize. And that is so true. That is just so true. But I always come back and realize if I fall down that rabbit hole, darn it, I just wake myself up and say, uh-oh, made a mistake. So an idol is meant to substitute for the true God with images that take the form of our creative. who is abstract and formless. We then worship the idols, taking their form as truth. All the while, we lose truth's content of love, and that is the truth. As soon as we get into a story, any story, the essence can just disappear, because story is contraction. When we are thinking, and in the thinking mind, we are contracting our energy and believing that we are these separate individual people who are so important. And God forbid we should even die, right? Because none of us want to die. That's like, oh no, this is all because the story that we wrote. That's why we are responsible for everything as one son, not Sharon, not Lori, not Dove. What is the best thing you can have in A Course in Miracles to get you through to the other side is the sense of humor. And I had that from the beginning, because I always have been addicted to my mind. And oh, Cindy's coming on. Good. So anyway, I always had that like addiction to the character that I play. But the character is nothing, right? It's all depending how important I want to be as a character. So how do you give it up? Well, it happens naturally. And that's what's going on here. There's not as much of that, reaction. I don't even know if I have the reactions. I always have a pause now. And it all happens really by itself, because life is living us. And another word for life is God. Love, whatever, they're all synonymous. The body is the central figure in the dreaming of the world. I always love this part on text chapter 27. There is no dream without it, nor does it exist without the dream in which it acts as if it were a person to be seen and be believed. It takes the central place in every dream, which tells the story of how it was made by other bodies, born into the world outside the body, lives a life little while, and dies, to be united in the dust with other bodies dying like itself. So in our insanity, we actually believe that this is our identity. We believe this. Why? Because it's our conditioned mind. We're all mind. We're not people. And that's the beauty of A Course in Miracles. It will never, ever say that you're not a body, because the body is just being projected by me and all of you with our characters. So we are really projecting this whole movie. So, and the one thing about the ego is the unholy trinity of sin, guilt, and fear. That's all it can give us. But there's a promise in the ego, because it gives you pleasure, right? It can give you a piece of chocolate or a cheesecake or whatever you like. And you're like, oh, thank you, God. I just love my life, right? That's what we're doing all day long. And, today's lesson is today I claim the gifts forgiveness gives. And what does it give us? Well, what does it mean? It doesn't mean you're sorry because you did something. You're sorry because nothing happened. So the question is, how could that be? How could nothing have happened? I mean, you hear me talking. This is happening in mind. There's no world. I see a world very different right now than Dove does, and Lori does, and Cindy does, right? Because it's all concepts. All I'm looking is an ego construct. And we have a lot of egoic constructs. And what they're doing now is thinning out, and very slowly, but with so much grace. And forgiveness is the decision not to say, I'm sorry, so-and-so, because I shouldn't have hurt you. No, you're never talking about another one. It's only my mind that I'm responsible for. I'm sorry that I had a mistaken identity. I'm sorry, I thought that I was a long-lasting separate entity. I'm sorry. That is truly a practice. Ho'oponopono, it says that, And the eternal. You know, a lot of times people will say the ego is God too, because there have been beings that have woken up without doing any of this stuff. It just happens, you know, it's one of the gifts that the universe can give a being. And then so they'll say, well, the ego is God, but the ego's not eternal. And if it's not eternal, I don't really believe that I can count it as God. That's just the way and by the way, it doesn't matter, because a lot of course people say that Jesus comes in the world and they're, you know, and they make the world real, and that works too. It works for them. There's no right or wrong. And that was something I really fell down the rabbit hole with when I would hear certain course teachers teaching that Jesus comes in the world and whatever else it does. I would become very judgmental in my mind. Well, they don't know the course and they don't listen to Ken, and Ken's the best teacher, and all of that is ego. All of it is ego. So it's really important for me to get up in the morning, and I got this from the course, but mostly from Gloria, when she says in the morning, I and the Father are one. And I've been doing that. And there's also a prayer every day that I can make a difference here, that I can bring peace. That was something I always felt I felt that was purpose, bringing love, peace, right, to the world. But again, if you're an ego, you sound very corny. Why would you do that? Or even the fact that I love to do service work, and I do. I mean, I do this in the 12 steps. I do work with people that are struggling with their children. And every part of my life has become a service to the self, to the infinite loving self that we all are. And everything that the Course in Miracles said, all the gifts that it tells us we will get, is happening through me now. And it's taken a long time, because I've always felt I was a slow learner, the character that I played, right? But none of that matters, because it's only now. And there's no one even out there other than the self. But it is magnificent when you look at the gratitude that we get to be in a body and to embrace the miracle of being alive. And with that, I will turn the mic over to Lori.
Thanks, Sharon. I think I'll continue with what you're doing with the Hero of the Dream, chapter 27, section 8, rather than doing our lesson today, because I really liked what you had to say. And it piggybacks off of what this line in paragraph 1 says. You know, the body tries to look for pleasure and avoid things that would be hurtful. Above all, it tries to teach itself its pains and joys are different and can be told apart. And I loved what you said about, oh, and now you had that piece of cheesecake and you just love your life now. And isn't that what we do? You said it so well, that we have these little moments and we think, oh, I want to keep this. I love this life. And I had one of those moments this morning where I was drinking my tea, and the tea was very pleasurable. And I thought of it like this, like, wait a minute, this does not mean that this life is valuable, because I've had a very, very strong focus lately on letting go of everything. I mean, not that I haven't had that focus for however many years I've been doing the course, 20 years, but it just feels even stronger now. It's like, that's all. It's like all these other things are coming up, little distractions, and they're just seen as what they are, distractions. Like even drinking that tea or eating that cheesecake is a distraction from who you really are. And the only true pleasure comes from doing God's will. Did you want to say something, Dov?
No.
Okay, you were just clearing your throat, I guess. The only true pleasure comes from doing God's will. And I saw a quote from, I don't know if it was Nisargadatta Maharaj or one of the other non-dual teachers, but it said the only true pleasure comes from awareness. Well, it's the same thing. If we say that we are God, we are awareness, we are the awareness of everything, then that's the same thing as doing God's will, because God's will is that we are aware of our true self, our Christ self, who we really are. That's the aim of this entire course. is that we wake up to who we really are. And so if we think that anything in this world can actually give us true pleasure, like that cheesecake or the tea, then we are deluded. And so we stop chasing these pleasures. And it seems to me like most of the people I know that have done the course have done that. They've stopped their old patterns of chasing pleasure. They've stopped their addictions. They've stopped their thought addictions, even that this, if I get this, if I just do this or accomplish this or get that job or get that relationship or that house or that car or even that state of health or anything, I'll be fine. And I can say that there is one addiction or thought pattern that I still have that just, it's very faint now, but it's still there in the background. And it's still like, oh, if only I could just abide in the Christ self all the time, then I wouldn't be disturbed by this world, because I have this absolute determination to not hate this world, to love the world, not from I love this world, I love being here, I love this place, it gives me so much pleasure, not that way, but to open my heart to this world as a projection of my mind. And so since I am love, all I can do is love. When you want only love, you will see only love. That's what the Course says in chapter 12. That's my goal. Not so much to, I love it here, I want to stay here, but also not the opposite, because opposites are part of the ego. So I love it here, I love my life, I want to stay here, I love the body, I love all the things here, versus I hate it here, I just want the hell out, just get me out. And it's so interesting because I don't see too many people out there who have that viewpoint, except maybe other course students. Other course students or non-dual students, they're the ones that a few of them will say, yeah, this world really isn't that great, And so when I hear people saying that, I'm like, that's what I think. That's what I've always felt. And yet that is ego too. So this line that says, above all, it tries to teach itself its pains and joys are different and can be told apart. So that ego part of me that keeps going, I'm going to be at peace when I just get the heck out of here. Or when I just wake up all the way, then I'll be at peace. That's just the ego lying and keeping me stuck in that tangled web. I'm tightening the web as the fly tangling itself up in the spider web. Every time I give that thought any credence whatsoever, I'm just tangling the web, because right here, right now, next breath, next thought, I am. We are already there. It's here right now, and we don't have to keep on working on waking up. And I've known that for many, many years. So I'm grateful, very, very grateful that thought, as it came up this morning, because I got out of bed, kind of creaky, old, it's cold. It's like, oh man, I don't like this body, especially as it's aging. And then it's like, but wait a minute, look what you're doing. You are in the ego thought system. You're believing that you're a body. Stop. So I'm going to turn this over to Dove.
All right. I like what you said too. And I identify with all of it. Yeah, I still love to have some cheesecake, and I like chocolates and things like that. And I don't have to have it, so the things that you can let go of, and like, I don't have to have the cheesecake, I don't have to have the chocolate. Those are, things that we, as Ken Wapnick would say, just be normal. Normal is, yeah, I like cheesecakes, and and if I don't have it, it's okay too. What I need to do is watch what I'm really addicted to, that I keep chasing, looking, trying to get. That is the kind of thing that keeps you blinded and a prisoner, basically a slave of the ego thought system, because you think it really means something, the willingness to say, I have no need of this anymore. There's nothing in this world that I really want. There is another world I do want. allows you to finally let go of the insanity. And I put up a couple of things on the board as soon as Sharon said she wanted to know what is the ego. So the first thing I put up here says what the ego makes, it keeps to itself, so it has no strength. So yeah, so anyone who gathers things to himself, and you don't give it, if you don't share it, basically is actually alone, and there's no strength in being alone. I'm just painting myself into a corner. It goes on to say, its existence is unshared. It doesn't die. It was merely never born. So the part of us that we're calling the ego really doesn't exist, but yet we listen to it like it does exist. And that's the, I'm trying to think of the expression. That's the thing that makes life crazy. It's my next paragraph that I wanted to share from chapter 6, section 3. The ego never was and never will be part of it, but through the ego you can see, hear, and teach and learn what is not true. So that's what we do here. I mean, ego is very present right here in this room, on this video on YouTube. And then it says, you have taught yourself to believe what you are not what you are. Yeah, I'm a body. I look decent. Okay. You want to look good. That's all part of the ego. And you want to speak well. When you can't come up with the word because it just is not there for you, you feel, well, how come it's not flowing? None of that means anything, but we think it means something. It just doesn't mean anything. And goes on to say, you cannot teach what you have not learned, and what you teach, you strengthen in yourself because you are sharing it. Every lesson you teach, you are learning. Of course, that's the purpose of ACIM Gather, is to come and teach, not to listen. Listen means the ego says, well, I'm not there yet, and if I listen enough, I'll be there. No, that's the ego. The ego never gets anywhere because it thinks that somebody has something that it doesn't have. Your willingness to step back and let him lead the way is what we call developing trust. And the Course in Miracles cannot teach you trust. It just can't. It tells you this step 5 of 6 steps alone can take a very long, long time. And that's kind of a funny line coming from Jesus, who tells you that there is no time. Time is the illusion. But he says, trust, it take a long time to develop trust. So as long as I'm taking some stuff out of the Course, this comes from chapter 7, section 3, which Karen uses as her tagline. This is where it says, only equals enjoy peace. I love that line because that is the truth. I do teach equality. And this is what it says in chapter 7, section 3. It says, this is why the ego is insane, period. It teaches that you are not what you are. Yeah. Dove thinks this is what Dove is. No, that is so contradictory. It is clearly impossible. So talking about the impossible dream, to dream an impossible dream. Oh, yes, I'm the great pretender, pretending to be what I'm not, you see. I mean, that's really crazy. But that's what we do all the time. It's therefore a lesson you cannot really learn. It's a lesson you can't really learn and therefore cannot really teach. Yet you are always teaching. My God. So I have gone from being a serious teacher to, you got to laugh. I mean, it's in your gentle laughter. And who are you laughing at? You're laughing at somebody else? No, you're laughing at your own insanity, literally. I mean, once you realize that you are insane, certifiably insane, you can start laughing. That's in the movie, what's it called, the Perfect Mind or something like that. The guy had schizophrenia. At the end of the movie, and he was a genius guy, a professor at Princeton, etc. At the end of the movie, he starts smiling and laughing at the things they used to take seriously. And so the bottom line, as Jesus says in the Course of Miracles, and in your gentle laughter, you are healed. Over to you, Sharon. Love you.
Yes, and temptation. Now that is the part that that I want to be with today, because there's always temptation. Temptation to have that cheesecake or temptation to hate that person. But we don't realize what we're doing to ourselves, and all of it's made up. Anyway, temptation has one lesson it would teach in all its forms. Wherever it occurs, it would persuade the Holy Son of God, he is a body, born in what must die, unable to escape its frailty, and bound by what it orders him to feel. It sets the limits on what he can do. Its power is the only strength he has. His grasp cannot exceed its tiny reach. Would you be this if Christ appeared you in all his glory, asking you but this? Choose once again if you would take your place among the saviors of the world, or would remain in hell and hold your brothers there. I love this part. For he has come and he is asking this. How do you make the choice? How easily is this explained? You always choose between your weakness and strength of Christ in you, and what you choose is what you think is real. And this is all happening on the subconscious level. So when trust always came up for this mind, I would feel like I was failing, because I would feel like, well, I'm trusting, but trust really has to happen at the bottom of the mind. And if you're drawn into a teaching like this, it will, because it's just part of the whole unfolding of the ego. Because the ego is nothing. I mean, I was looking in the mirror this morning, and I realized I'm the same weight now that I was when I met my husband. And the pants that I used to wear do not fit me, but I'm the same weight. Why is that? Well, this body is always changing. It's a projection. So, I would sit there and say, oh, I don't believe it. This stuff doesn't even fit me. And that would have been something that Sharon, the character, would have really, really thought about a lot. Like, what's going on that my body's changed and I have such a big belly and blah, blah, blah. And it was always about how I look, right? And who was looking at me but just me? And that is the gift of the Course in Miracles, right? So the ego is an idea that it believes it's possible that things could happen to the Son of God. We are the extension of God. So what does that mean? Do you really think we want to be people when we're already in God, in love, in this power that is beyond something that we don't remember? Like, memory comes back to this mind now that I can see that it's just this beingness, and that the awareness or love's presence is the eternal, but it's a reflection of the eternal. So if there's a fear of death, get excited, get curious about, wow, I get to see when I'm out of this body, what happens? Instead of saying, oh no, I'm going to leave my family. And by the way, that could be me. Who the heck knows? But you really have to look at this and laugh, like Dove said, because all of this is an unfolding that's happening through this vessel that's speaking. The vessel, the only thing the vessel was willing. But I did as the Son of God believe there was free will, because it says that, but that's in the domain of the ego. We believe that we are egos and we are in charge, but it's really happening. It's happening by grace. And once we realize that, we can even laugh at that, because all decisions have been made already. The decision is that the script is written. Why change it? Why change anything? Why not just be? So this morning I had a talk with my son, because I have an interview tomorrow for a job where I could work in an after-school program right down the street from my house. And, you know, the school is called the Baker School. And that is my name. My maiden name was Sharon Ann Baker. That was my name before I married my ex-husband and now my husband now. And I kept the name Slack because my boys knew in some way that they were going to maybe be estranged from their father. And it was important to them that I kept my name. And, you know, the way I am, I wanted to make sure that they were comfortable, because when my marriage fell apart, I was very concerned for my boys. And that's just a mother's nature, right? That's just the way we all are. We're just being lived by that nature. We are animals. We're Homo sapiens. So and Homo sapien is really loves their young. It's no different than a bear. And one of the things that I would get so angry with when at least one teacher, and I will not name her, would say, well, you can let your kids go because they're God. Well, that would be that teacher's wish, not mine. I don't get real up in arms and nervous anymore that something could happen, because I know it can. And really, in reality, nothing happened. But I still believe that my children, they benefit from love and family and no criticism of what they're doing. Because, you know, let's face it, all of us as egos criticize. And I have stopped that, at least, you know, for the most part. Sometimes thoughts come out. But, you know, when I talked to my son, he was saying, Mom, you're old, you're almost 70. You cannot work 5 days a week. Well, this is after school program. I know the energy I have. And I'm done with thinking I'm almost 70. I'll be 69 on January 14th. So, but I don't want, I really feel like moving and working with people and spreading that love wherever I can go. Now that's the power. How in the heck would that be too much for me? Too much for me would be worrying or being in the ego, but going out and just loving everyone unconditional and being with children, well, they're a reflection of innocence, aren't they? So, you know, I don't think I've ever really listened to others. Like my mother was extremely traditional, and I am so outside the box that she just used to shake her head. Where did I get her? She used to say, because I am very open and extreme. I'll do things like, you know, just go to my own drummer, you know, just this tune of like believing that I don't have to fit in a world, right? Because I love art, and that's the medium I use through this life to connect with children. You know, there was a time years ago that Laurent and Regina were on Gather. They were doing a lot of stuff that had come into Regina's mind. And they used to talk a lot about kill and be killed, you know, and that is in the teacher's manual. And I didn't like it because I saw myself in depression when I had my children. I had 2 depressions, and I saw the hate. I saw the evil darkness. And once people would talk about it, I would go, oh God, I don't want that again. You know, meanwhile, all of that is ego, but it's not me. So what happened to Sharon, even the mother thing, it's not me either, right? Our story isn't going to work out the way we thought it was. And we all know that right now. We all had a different idea of how this story would unfold. So the thing that I was attracted to the Course in Miracles, and I wanted it more than I wanted most things. I mean, I would tell you that I wanted awakening, like, because I wanted out of this dream, because the dream is painful. It really is. And now I'm like enjoying my life in a way even though I thought I did before, when you're in misery and you're in the ego, you don't even know you're miserable because you're talking about that person over there. You believe that person out there made you miserable, or that person who's running for president, or whoever. That's what we do all day. Of course we're exhausted. Of course we get sick. This body wants to rest. It's just false evidence appearing real. All that the ego is an idea that it is possible that things could happen to the Son of God without his will, and thus without the will of his creator, whose will cannot be separate from his own. This is the Son of God's replacement for his will, a mad revolt against what must forever be. This is the statement that he has the power to make God powerless, and so to take it for himself and leave himself without what God has willed for him. This is the mad idea you have enshrined upon your altars and which you worship. And that's like a kick in the teeth when you first start this, because you're like, what? I've been like this for over 50 years. That's when I started the course. And now it's like, I don't know that any of us are here for any kind of numbers. We can't know in this world of form and in the way this that we were really here. Like Dove is what, 82 or 83? Has he really been here that long? Or is that a story in our mind, right? Because there's no time. That is the vast illusion. And I think this naturalness that came into me was, I don't have interest in the world right now, except for the creativity of children. And I do love people anyway, but the political scene, I don't even want any parts of it. The other day I was listening to Dove and Myrna, and they were talking about what's going on in the world. And I have not, and I'm not guilty for this either, but the ego would like me to be. I have not really watched it. And the reason is because it just is a feed for the ego. So when I said that to my sister, and I didn't tell her about the ego, she said, Sharon, you're Jewish. You remember, because Jewish people were absolutely conditioned to say never again and to get angry and to make sure that nobody hurts us. This is all coming from the separate self story. I do go to my own drummer. I don't feel like I could even pick a side. The thing that I say to my oldest boy who does this kind of work is, why don't you just accept that they're both wrong and that no one is right when they fight? Anything that brings us out of love for our brothers, that's really hurting all of us, right? So we have to let it all go. And eventually maybe I'll find out what's really going on. I mean, they talked about Hamas and Israel, and Jewish people, like, they will defend Israel until, and I am Jewish and I don't defend Israel because I believe both sides are wrong. That is truly the way I feel about any war. They could say, well, look at slavery, but you see, that's all part of, the other. This dream is about the other. It's always about the other. And there's no other. Over to you, Laura.
Thanks, Sharon. When you say that Jews are conditioned, never again, never again. Actually, I think we're all conditioned to never again, no matter how we were raised. If we're on the path of personal growth, and there's the word personal, the separate ego self, all of our decisions are made to avoid the pain that we had before. And so we all have it, but that's a wonderful example with the Jews as a whole being conditioned. We're not going to let this happen. So we get proud of ourselves. We get proud of our military, the Mossad, they get proud of Israel's independence. And in the ego world, they have real good reason to be proud, because Jewish people are very accomplished and they've made their own state and everything. But then that pride, that's still at the ego level. And I like David Hawkins' scale of ego feelings and development, and pride is at the top of the ego level. So it has more energy than the other emotions. So he has this scale. Ag flap cap is the abbreviation for it. So apathy and grief are at the very bottom. It's low energy. You're not involved in the world. Flap is fear, lust, anger, and then pride. So pride has more energy in the world than the, grief and fear and lust and all that lusting after things, not just sex. But then when you stop being an ego, you get into courageousness, acceptance, and peace. So at that level, those two countries would say, let's work together, let's resolve this. And I totally agree with you that when they're warring, they're both wrong and they're both right, in the sense of it's all ego. So I love how you stand up for that and you stand up for truth. Continuing with the hero of the dream, paragraph 2. The dreaming of the world takes many forms because the body seeks in many ways to prove it is autonomous and real. Well, look at that. How is war? War is totally, our country's better than yours. It puts things on itself that it has bought with little metal discs or paper strips the world proclaims as valuable and real. It works to get them doing senseless things and tosses them away for senseless things it does not need and does not even want. It hires other bodies that they may protect it and collect more senseless things that they can call its own. It looks about for special bodies that can share its dream. Sometimes it dreams it is a conqueror of bodies weaker than itself. But in some phases of the dream, it is the slave of bodies that would hurt and torture it. So that speaks to what you were just saying about, what about slavery? What about the conqueror of bodies weaker than itself? One country conquers another. And I was thinking about that this morning with Henry Kissinger just died, and they're talking about all of his accomplishments. And we see that on the world stage, but like at this point, that's part of our collective story. Whereas in other times, there were other conquerors or big statesmen or whatever who were very important, but it's still all the story. And you were talking about your clothes don't fit anymore, even though you're the same weight. I've had that same situation. And one of the gifts of aging, even though aging is part of the illusion too, used by the Holy Spirit, we can let go of the body because we end up giving up because there's so many things that go wrong with the body and we don't look the way we used to look and we can't keep up. It's almost like a losing battle. So it's like, oh, just let it go. Now there's this, now there's that. Every week there's a new wrinkle or a new thing. And this week for me, it's been these bags under my eyes. And I'm like, oh God, I just look so crappy. But it's like, well, that's the ego. That's the body. Let it go. Am I going to be upset about that? Or am I just going to let it go and go, wait a minute, that's not even who I am. I'm definitely not this body. So letting go of the body, if Israel and Palestine let go of bodies, what would that be? What I've experienced is that increasing lack of interest in the world of anything except showing up and being loved. So I think it's wonderful that you still have this thing about the creativity of children with art, and you want to get out there and extend that love and share that. And I totally agree with you. It's like your son is buying into numbers and aging. It's like, what are you talking about? That's going to make you more alive than anything. And I feel that way with my grandchildren. It's like, oh my gosh, I am the only reason I think I'm in a body anymore is for my daughter and for my grandchildren, even though that's part of the illusion too. So that's even an ego statement. It's a script. It's whatever it is. And the ego fear can get in there and be so scared that something bad is going to happen to my grandkids. And so when you didn't like what that other teacher said about, well, your children are God, so you can let them go, that actually helps me, because that's what I think about my grandchildren when I get worried that something's going to happen to them. When I go to the place of, wait a minute, they're the Christ. How can I lose them? How can they be lost? How can anything happen to them? Nothing can. So that type of statement actually helps me, which again is just the ego, because egos like different things or resonate with different things. But the truth is, none of it means anything. And that's one of the blessings I've had from getting this good relationship that I have now, where it's not a special relationship or, things come up, but it's like, wow, this is, I think, the holiest relationship I've ever had with a man. And with my grandchildren, it's just beautiful. These kids light up my life. But still, it's like, wait a minute, none of it really means anything. And so when I get to that place of lesson one, nothing I see means anything. The only thing that means anything is the love behind it. So the body of the man, the body of these little babies, they don't mean anything because the love is all. And so the world that I see now reflects a lot more love than it used to. And I am very grateful for that, for the healing of the mind. But going back to what you were talking about, Sharon, about it's all in the mind. And so we can let it all go. So I'm turning this over to you, Dove.
Well, I agree with that. It's all in the mind, and the ego mind is insane. And if we identify with this body, this psychological thing that has a name different than other names, has roots, religions different than other religions, I'm just as insane because what God creates is one and the same equal. That's why I'm doing, thanks to Lynn, she's given me the 4th Tuesday of every month, and I'm going to be starting a class in our regular Tuesday night class on chapter 25 called The Justice of God. And there's 9 sections, and I'm going to start in section 9, which is the justice of heaven, because it's so beautiful. And then I'm going to go back to section 1 and do the first 8, and then we're going to finish up on section 9, the justice of heaven. And when you really hear God's thoughts, and that's one of the main places that I know in the Course of Miracles where you really get to hear how God sees things and God's will, which is our will. So, Veronica, one of the teachers here, says if you're going to read one section of the Course, make it section 23, the war against myself. I always kind of repeat that. She said it probably about, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. And I say, if you're going to read one section, make it the justice of God, chapter 25, and we're going to do that. Regarding the idea that Sharon brought up and you spoke on it, and I agree with you on that, Laurie, that the idea that never again is actually the ego's mantra. I mean, the ego's mantra is seek and do not find, which tells you there's hope in the future, and Israel is really like a land of hope. I mean, Jesus said in the Course, if you find yourself in a desert, leave. There's no water. I always say, don't tell that to the Israelis because they actually turn desert into green trees and oases and all kinds of flowering things. So they have done miracles there. But I also think it's to their detriment, and I think that's the idea that they demand that they won't allow this to happen again invites it to happen again. Is the ego, says, this is a nice slogan, never again, and they actually invite it by saying never again. And of course, the ego loves to say, well, we're going to do the same things that others did. And they start making settlements and kibbutzes further and further out. And they're encroaching on others' lands already. And, instead of staying close to Tel Aviv, the way up near Lebanon and, where there was military there's military all over the place. And they don't like being pushed around, just like the Israelis didn't like being pushed around, and that's how they get themselves into trouble. So I would definitely say that's probably something that Jewish people should let go of, because all you're doing is remembering the past. Never again is I'm going to make the past a memorial to who I am. If you're doing the Course of Miracles, you know that lesson number 7 says, I see only the past. So if you're running away from your past, where do you think you're going to end up? I mean, once you start seeing things differently, you realize if you're running away from the past, where do you think you're going to wind up? You're going to wind up in the past. It's that simple. You can't run away from something that's not real, except to the same thing. So the idea of never again has really hurt them. And I mean, not that Israel always had prime ministers like Netanyahu. I mean, the first one was actually they invited Albert Einstein, to be the very first president of Israel. He had turned it down. Ben Gurion, which was the first, he was a wonderful, loving, very easy to kind of get along with prime minister. Golda Meir, there's a movie called Golda. I mean, she was wonderful. Someone noticed that the Labor Party that used to dominate in the early years, now it's been turned over to the conservatives. It's kind of like the Democrats and Republicans, but the Labor Party was a much more relaxed, easy-going kind of group, and that's where you got the Golda Meirs and the Ben Gurions and Rabin and all the people that look to make peace with their neighbors. The ultra right conservatives, which are now seem to be in charge, just want more land and keep encroaching until someone says, no, you're stepping on my toes. Sorry, Charlie, we're gonna do to you what you do to us. We're gonna step on your toes too. But as long as I have a few more minutes left, I'm going to talk about, not only is the ego always seeking and do not find, but it's made a world, as Morpheus says in the Matrix, the world has been pulled down before your eyes and has blinded you. So the Son of God has made a world for himself that he believes, with a big lie, that is real, but it's just, blinding his sight. That's why, lessons 20, 21, 27, 28 says, I'm determined to see. He's telling you, you're blind. And finally, above all else, I am determined to see differently. And that's what we're here for. So, like in one of my all-time favorite sections, what you want? Yeah, it's called the Holy Spirit's alternative to projection. He says, how else can you? This is chapter 6, section 2, and this is paragraph 6. How else can you find joy in a joyless place, except by realizing that you're not there? So, I mean, it's an exercise in lunacy, insanity. We talk about the world like it's real, and he's telling you, if you're doing the course and you're doing it as Jesus gives it to you, rather than the way that you interpret it for your own sake. Oh, well, Dove has to, find a place for himself here in this world. No, he says, you aren't in this world. He goes on to say, God did not put, you cannot be anywhere that God did not put you, and God created you as part of himself. That's both where you are and what you are. It's completely unalterable. Let me see. That's a 1, 2, 3, 4-word sentence. It's completely unalterable. It is total inclusion, a 3-word sentence. You cannot change it now or ever. It's forever true. It's not a belief. It's not a lie, but a fact. Huh? Well, why am I talking about kibbutzes in Israel for? You got to laugh. All that said and done, yeah, he starts off that chapter 6 section 2 by saying in paragraph 5, the Holy Spirit starts by seeing you as perfect. And seeing you as perfect, sees your brother, includes your brother. Inclusion includes your brother. This inclusion invites atonement automatically. Oh, really? Well, what is atonement? Oh, what is atonement? Let's see. This invites atonement automatically. Let's see what Jesus says atonement is. Let's see. This is in chapter 6, section 2. I already put it in the room, and I'll put it here in the chat too. He says this invites atonement automatically. Really? I mean, automatically? I mean, I don't have to do anything. That's right. All you have to do is see your brother as yourself equal, the same. Inclusion, not exclusion. Exclusion is never again. Inclusion is here, now, always the same. That's inclusion. It says to perceive yourself this way is the only, and whenever you use the word only, he wants you to really listen. It's the only way in which you can find happiness in this world. That's because it's the acknowledgement that you're not in this world, for the world is unhappy. You got to laugh. I'll turn the mic back over to you, Sharon.
I am excited about you doing that class, because I really think that out of all the people I've met through the course community, I would say that, you're pretty much a scholar when it comes to the course, and so I'm very happy that you're doing this, because
Thank you.
Yeah. And especially the fact that, the Course in Miracles really gives us so much love through the whole book, that the actual fear of death, and again, that would be the ego, so we don't know how that would react, but if we really do get that we don't die, sure, we're going to, for an ego, we're going to miss whoever we feel like we're invested in, and we are invested subconsciously, but none of that matters, right? Because it's all here right now. The here-ness, the now-ness, that's just the face of God, right? It's the face of awareness. It's the face of love's presence. And it gives us an idea that we are light. And this character, would we rather be these walking puppets or light beings, full of light and love, with no opposite? That's what this world is. It's a world of opposites. The ancient story that, of course, says when an ancient hatred becomes a present love is happening between Palestinians and Israelis. That's been going on from the beginning. That is written in the script. So to take aside, of course, growing up Jewish, there was always like more of a, I guess, loyalty to Israel. But then over the years, and it especially happened with my son Andrew, because he had gone to Brandeis, and it was a lot of Jewish kids go there. Brandeis. Why? Do you know that?
I'm laughing because my daughter Debbie went there for her first year. Says too many Jews.
Well, the story behind that one, and this is just a story, is that Brandeis, that he couldn't get into, Louis Brandeis could not get into the Ivy Leagues because he was a Jew. So that's where Brandeis came in. And I believe Einstein went there, but I'm not sure. Now, the interesting thing is, Andrew went to Brandeis, and his close friends, some of them were Palestinians. So he got an education, and he has this very open heart. And he learned what they had gone through. And it was wonderful for him, because he loved Judaism. He went on to, it's called Gratz College in Philadelphia, as you keep going on, because he loved every part of learning about Judaism. But then when he met his friends there that were Palestinians, and it is like, basically, there's a lot of Jews there. Yeah. But the kind of, people that I met from Andrew, they were just, I mean, they were just so open. And that's the whole point of Brandeis. Brandeis is not going to put you into a, unless you want to be. If you want to be just with the Jewish people, you will be. But that's, both my boys aren't married to Jewish women, and I'm not married to a Jewish man. And my ex-husband does judge us. He'll say, like, well, why didn't any of you marry Jews? Well, because I want to say, I'm sorry. I want to say, well, because of you, Ronnie. But really, it's not anything to do with you. I'm sorry, everybody. He just has to have his say. He's just sharing. He's scruffy sharing, and he's beautiful. But anyway, yeah. And that is another thing, opening up your mind, realizes you don't have to just marry somebody. Oh, there's my son. Oh, you don't have, my son's just coming in now. This is Jonathan, but you can't see him. Anyway, I just want to say, everybody have a wonderful day, and I love you all. And just stay in the now, because that's all it is. And thank you, Dove and Lori and everyone else. Yeah. Love you guys.
Yeah, I also want to say tonight, starting at 7, going to 8:30, is our deep dive. We're at the end of the manual for teachers. Please join us on Zoom.
Oh, it's fun too. It's a lot of fun.
And yeah, I really enjoy on Thursday nights.
I do too. I love it.
Bye, you guys. It's good talking to you. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Lori. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Lynn.
Bye, you guys. Thank you so much. I'm looking for Zoma and not seeing Zoma.